Twice a week, a 747 loaded with tourists lands here at the island's only town, called Hangaroa. The islanders now depend economically on promoting the powerful aura of mystery surrounding the stones, and the many theories and myths that have sprung up to explain them. The islanders have their own traditions, that the stones were moved by a supernatural source of power called mana.
Many islanders still believe the statues were moved by mana, a supernatural power. Otherwise, how could they have done it? We think the statues walked by themselves to the Ahu sites, and that's something that shouldn't be forgotten.
Outsiders have suggested equally fantastic ideas, that the statues were blasted out of the rock with the help of alien visitors and extraterrestrial technology. Another powerful myth grew from Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl's celebrated Kon-Tiki raft voyage in 1947. Through this heroic exploit, Heyerdahl hoped to prove that the islands of the Pacific were colonized from the high civilizations of South America, such as the Incas. The implication was that the native Polynesians weren't capable of developing an elaborate culture by themselves. But there was almost no solid evidence to back up Heyerdahl's theory, or its implicitly racist overtones. Recently, a more subtle myth has grown up around the statues, that the builders wrecked their own environment and civilization in a process disturbingly similar to some modern scenarios of environmental catastrophe. Few monuments in the ancient world have provoked so many bizarre and conflicting theories. Even level-headed archaeologists disagree about the real story behind the enigmatic statues of Easter Island. Should we view them as a triumph of engineering brilliance, the handiwork of a resourceful and enterprising people, or as the irrational products of a culture that indulged in an orgy of environmental destruction? Can science penetrate through the myths of Easter Island and tell us what really happened? It all began with an epic voyage, very different to the one envisaged by Thor Heyerdahl. Instead of originating in South America as Heyerdahl believed, we now know that the ancestors of all Pacific Islanders came from Southeast Asia. Their great voyages of migration began at least 3,500 years ago. Archaeologists have documented the ebb and flow of human movement as the first Polynesians explored and settled the islands of the Pacific. The navigators of traditional voyaging canoes developed extraordinary skills for finding their way among the islands. When out of sight of land, they steered by the stars and their ability to read ocean swells, clouds, and the appearance of birds. But could anyone have planned a voyage to Easter Island? It was extraordinarily difficult to reach. In fact, once people arrived, perhaps a single boatload around 400 AD, the island appears to have remained totally isolated until the Dutch came in 1722. So the original discovery was probably an accident. Those first colonizers found themselves in a place very different from the other Pacific islands. Zoologist David Stedman has studied their impact on the island's flora and fauna.
In most parts of Polynesia, there were people, there were islands, within 100 miles or a couple hundred miles. And these people were great voyagers, and so they were communicating back and forth. You could trade plant and animal stocks, and all these resources were a little bit interchangeable, if not a lot interchangeable, elsewhere in Polynesia. Easter Island was so isolated that once people got there, there's very little, perhaps no, further contact with other people. So what you have is what you have, and once you lose something, it's not, you don't have the opportunity of sailing to a nearby island to replenish your stocks. So the isolation is a major factor on Easter Island. Another big factor is Easter Island is farther south than the tropical islands of Polynesia. So some of the food crops that the Polynesians typically would grow and eat wouldn't grow on Easter Island. So the agricultural resources right from the beginning are stressed. Another thing about Easter Island that puts it at a disadvantage is how rugged it is. It's very windy. Most of the coastline is cliffs, so it's hard to get a canoe out to even go fishing.
Yet this simple existence gave rise to the astonishing statue cult. How did it happen? A volcanic crater known as Rano Raraku provided the quarry for most of the island's great statues. No less than 397 of them are still lying here in various stages of manufacture.